my name is Saeed. I'm the WCO intern from the Canada office. My manager looks in, and I'm here to present my final.
And we're trying to move this.
All right, so my agenda, I'll talk about myself, my projects, key takeaways, and then thank yous, and then I'll open the floor up for questions. About myself, I'm originally from Ghana, which is in West Africa. So if you look at that, Ghana actually is right there, up here with the map right there. And it's usually referred to as the gateway to Africa. If you're not too sure about Ghana again, I just want to mention that's the country that always gets drawn in the Soccer World Cup with the US. All right, and that's me right there as a baby. Until I was a very curious baby. My hobbies are usually soccer. I have a soccer ball there with my soccer team, which is Arsenal FC. It's a team in London, England. And normally, if it's a weekend, if I don't watch a game, I'm not really myself. I have to watch a game to know the weekend is going good. So that's my school mascot. That's Joe Minor. I'm a chemical engineering major at Missouri S&T. At that school as well, I was the African Students Association president before I came for my intern. And I have a picture of myself at our annual Gala Night event. I did a juggling with a soccer ball at the event as the president of the association, and it showed I like to participate. I leave you here with a word. It's Ubuntu, which is humanity towards others. So it's all about kindness, and that's what I kind of like see myself. So my projects, this is a couple of projects that I was involved in. Some of these projects I was on as a team, and others on there I own the project as well. I'm going to take two of those projects and walk you through those projects. So the two that I'm going to discuss here would be Project Chimuwaku, and then the WCO Plan Capacity Analysis Dashboard, which I created for the WCO team. It's for the WCO leadership. So Project Chimuwaku, Chimuwaku actually is a Japanese word which means teamwork. So I came up with the name myself when the project was given to me. I looked at the scope and I was like, this is about a team. This is a project about teamwork. It's a project that has to do with quality. So I went ahead and did this project as a Six Sigma, using the DMAIC Six Sigma philosophy to solve this problem. And so I'm going to take you through the Six Sigma DMAIC problem solving approach. So this is a journey that we're going to start. And we start with the define phase. In the defined phase of the project, I set some SMART goals for myself. And my project statement was to increase the predictability of char volatile from our supply site to our Kingsford plants. And I was going to do that to make sure that about 90% of the volatiles that we received in the plant would be within our specification limit before December 1st. The purpose of this was because the Bell plant was showing volatiles, about 53% of their volatiles was showing from the supplier, was showing that it was out of spec. And the scope that I set for this was to align the testing method between the supplier and our Kingsford plant, and then also make sure we had like a collaborative platform for the Kingsford plant analysts, so they can be working more or less like standardizing, so they can be doing the same thing as opposed to doing different. In the defined phase, I'll try and then kind of like give you an idea of what char is. So this is a picture of char, and one of my intern colleagues here has a sample of char, so if you want to get a look at it, So char is actually carbon and hydrogen, and it's usually the main raw material that we use in our charcoal briquettes. The quality attributes for char is usually volatiles, our IGT, which is ignition temperature, and then ash. So, but I'm going to be focusing on volatiles here. The quality impact for char, so char volatile quality impact usually would impact our pen performance and then the uneven feel in our briquette bags. So you can see very well that volatile is very important, so we had to make sure we within our specification limit. So in the defined stage, I started again by creating a SIPOC. So this is a SIPOC diagram. So what this was to help me do was to understand the process so I can look at and kind of get an idea of what the process is on a high level, and also to understand who my customers are in this process and get to know what's going on and how I can address the needs of those customers. So on a high level for the input side of this, you can see clearly here that our supplier was testing with a muffle furnace, which is an equipment they were using, and we're using a liquid equipment. So clearly, you can see clearly that we're using two different equipment. And also, with regards to sample preparation, it was obvious that we were grinding our samples before we tested. The supplier wasn't doing that. And I was able to identify my customers. So from this point, I went on to do a VOC, which is the voice of the customer, and find out what my customers really needed so I can address their needs. After doing that, I went on to the measure stage. So the measure stage was to get data and then try to figure out where we stand before I start my project. And in the measure stage, what we see here is data from our Bell plant between January 2017 to June 2017. The diamond data points that you see there is supplier data, testing data for volatiles, and then the blue is what we have from our Kingsford plant. So for every track of load that goes to our plant, that is what we have for testing between supply and our plant. And you can see there is some kind of variation between the two. The dark shaded area is our specification limit. And this is also data from our bench side facility as well. So I then went on to look at the frequency distribution for that data to see where our standard deviations are and see how spread our data is also looking, so I can kind of like make a decision which plant I was going to use to do my job. So at this point, I decided I was going to work with the Bell plant and then see what improvement I can get into that process. Once I did that, we can rip and apply to the other plants. So with Bell, before I started, the first thing I did was to look at their system and look at an X and R control chart to see if their process was within statistical control. Actually, like I said, Bell had made us aware that their process was actually, they were getting a lot of out of spec items. So obviously, with the control chart that you see here as well, it was clearly obvious that the process was not within statistical control before I started. So my challenge was to be able to get the process back within statistical control and make sure that we were producing our upper and spec limits. So to do that, I created a process capability chart as well to see what we had before I started. So for this process capability report, you can see clearly here that if we, within our upper and lower specification limits, if we test about 1 million samples, we're going to have about 164,000 of those would be out of spec. So then I went on to analyze and try to figure out how I was going to be able to help improve this process. So in my analysis stage of this, I started with a fault tree diagram here to understand why the volatiles were not matching between our supply and our plant. And on a high level, I looked at equipment, analytical method, environment, and then manpower to understand like what's going into all those different areas. And then ask the why questions and then keep going down with that. So for equipment, I was able to see clearly, like I showed in the cyborg, that we're using two different equipment. So it was up to me to go on and see if those equipment correlated. And also for sample preparation, I looked at our Kingsford sample preparation methods and then the sample preparation method at the supplier side. And then some of the questions that I asked to get to the root cause was, I saw that, like I said, the Kingsford plants were grinding our samples, we were testing on a wet basis. And then, but then the supplier side, they weren't grinding their sample and they were doing their testing on a dry basis. And also there was a moisture subtraction, which once they're using muffle furnace, they had to be doing. So once I saw that, it was clearly obvious for me to check and see if those equipments correlated. So this is a correlation analysis for data from one of our plants, tested on muffle furnace in our plant, and then LECO equipment as well to see if those equipment correlated. And from what you see here, our R square was 0.3, so it was obvious that the equipment did not correlate. So I had to then move on and look at sample preparation and see how that would impact the process. So for sample preparation, what I did with that was in my improved stage was to look at the supplier sample preparation method and understand what they were doing and see if that matched with our ASTM sample preparation that we're supposed to be following. And I saw clearly that for ASTM, you're supposed to be grinding your sample to have a surface area that would make it better to be able to test. They weren't doing that, so I was able to change that. So this is some of the changes that I was able to get them to understand to do for their sample preparation before they did their testing. So one of the things we did was make sure that they took a larger sample and then did testing on that, grinded their sample, and instead of cooking their sample at 10 minutes, they had to do it to 7 minutes, which is the ASTM method that they were supposed to do. And with the equipment they were using, you had to subtract moisture to get the final volatile. So it was important to make sure our moisture was really absolutely correct. So to do that, we had to get them to get a better moisture balance. So this was a moisture balance they were using before we started this. So to be able to measure a better, larger sample, I was able to have a meeting with them, and they agreed, having seen the data, to purchase this moisture balance. So they got this moisture balance in place, so we knew their moisture was now going to be at least perfect. So we gave it time to see what the data was going to show us. So after that, within August and November, I was tracking my data, and then I did a process capability analysis to see what the results were within that time, to see how improved our system was going to be. And then from what you can see now, if we tested about 1 million samples, we're going to have about 18,000 as opposed to 164,000 samples that were going to be out of our specification limits. And that is an improvement of about 88.84% of what we started with when we started the whole process. And then I went on to my control. So after that, I had to make sure to see if the process was back within statistical control. And you can see clearly there with the data point that our control limits, it's within statistical control as well. So not to leave the process that way, so it doesn't get back to what it is, I had to put in place control measures so our process will be sustained against that will be sustained. So these are some of the control measures that I kind of like came up with. Annual Kingsport Quality Conference, actually we had that in the Kennesaw site. I was able to, with the help of Carla Mueller, who was my sponsor on this project, she was able to get, we had all the quality analysts in the different plants to come to the Kennesaw site. We had a 2-day conference, and at that conference we were able to kind of have GSS folks come and talk to them and understand, so we don't get to that situation again. I also had a sample preparation standardization for Kingsport folks, so they can have that in a box folder that I created with everyone on there, where we have like a document control area where all the clients are getting document from one source, not from their own sources. So now I'll go on to my second project, which is a dashboard that I created for the WCO, and this was to track losses in the Northern American plants and Latin America as well. And this is with data from NETS, BW2 reports in SAP, and then the ZeroSoft software tool that the Latin folks also use. And I just launched this, so this is on the server, right? I got this on the server yesterday, so I'm going to do a live demo of that. So this is what the dashboard navigation page looks like, and it's customized to the WCO. So you have the WCO House of Reliability right on there. And what you see with those arrows are the different dashboards that you click and then go to the different dashboards that you want to go to. So we're going to go to the first dashboard, which is a percentage OEE comparison. Right. So like I said, it's all the Latin and North America plants, so that's why you have all that data spread. You're going to choose the Bell plant and look at the Bell plant on this one. So as you can see, the Bell plant has 2 packaging lines. That's what you see down with the dashboard, but we're going to drop down to 1 packaging line so we can just use that as our demo. So for 1 packaging line for the Bell plant, this is our dashboard for OEE comparison. We can go on and look at the percentage on plant downtime dashboard for that. So once you create that, it will give you that data for that. And percentage on plant downtime, it has, and you got percentage plant downtime as well, dashboard as well, and you have shutdown production adjustment as well. And then you have percentage performance losses dashboard, that as well comes up and you can see that. And then you have the on-plant tab design in different plants as well. Once you click that, you can also see that. And like I said, this is for the WCO leadership. So I'm going to go back to my presentation and then just continue with where I left off. So after that, my key takeaways when I got here, I think for me, for the first thing that I kind of saw was support. The support system in the Clorox company was really great. HR was definitely there to give us that support from day one when I started. If you needed help, like you can reach out, and then my manager as well, Sam, was there to support me. The WCO folks, all the people that I worked with, and the people in the company were definitely supportive. I have this as my first picture that I'm going to talk about in regards to my key takeaways. So what you see here, what you can read here, which is saying that if you ask Bill Gates this question, if he came to an event to donate, you definitely know that you're not going to get all the money that you require. So communication for me was key. You had to make sure that before you go into any meeting or anything like that, you had to be sure that what you were going to be communicating. So communication was key for me in my project, and this picture goes to suggest that. The second one I have here is to do with networking. So again, it's another picture where you see there's 2 people on the ends, and one person is asking, I wish I was in that group, and the other person is saying, please someone talk to me. So for me, that's where I see like when you kind of like get. So I was here in my second project, which I showed with the dashboard. I was here in Alpharetta one time, and then I was in the analytics area, and I happened to talk with William Check. By then, I just started. I was working on that project, and then once we started talking, I just mentioned the fact that I was working on something with Tableau to that dashboard, and he definitely. Once we started just talking, he gave me an idea about how to structure my data, and that went a long way to help make that project a success. So I kind of feel like networking was very important, and you have to kind of initiate that talk and start to talk to someone rather than just being your own corner. And the last one I have here is volunteer. And again, this is also a picture. And if you look at this picture again, you can see clearly there's something missing in that there. So when I get emails, for instance, and then they're asking to get someone to volunteer, this is what kind of gives me the hint that I need to, that you has to be there to make that complete. So I kind of take that you to be myself. So I volunteered a lot. So I was involved in a lot of volunteering events, and this kind of like, this picture kind of tells why you have to kind of like have that you in there to make it complete. So the activities that I was involved here during my time here, so this is a few pictures I'm going to go through. This is the IAM Pillar Conference that I was part of the team that organized that IAM Pillar Conference, and this was a conference that had all the folks in the IAM folks in all the different plants, as well as Latin America for a week in the Kennesaw office. And I had a very great networking with that as well. So there's also a picture here with my fellow interns who went to the Atlanta main plant during our first couple of weeks to tour the plant. Have another picture here. This is a safety celebration at the Kennesaw site. We did have a relay event, and I was in a team that won that event. So at least I was in a winning team whilst I was here. This is also a science fair that I volunteered for in Atlanta during my the first couple of weeks that I was here with some interns and then the ICLDB folks as well. And it was also a great experience. This is another science event as well in Cartersville, Georgia, that I was involved in as well with my fellow interns and other workers. And then last one I have here is socializing with my fellow interns at Top Golf. You can see for my thank you, I took the time to type a couple of names on here. It's a lot of names. So,
nice.
And I definitely did that. It's just to show that there's more names that I could fit here, but definitely it's just one slide. I'm not going to bore you with the names. So there was a lot of people that I would like to thank, and I think everybody that I work with and the people that I came across really helped me a lot. And I want to thank everyone in the Clorox company in general. Thank you very much, and thanks for listening.
So, Saeed, I'm from the DSO Analytics Group.
Sure.
And I'm sitting on the edge of my chair when you start going into demand.
Okay.
All right, this is great. We're talking action. Who helped you set that goal? Because that was a really, without knowing what your problem is, to set a goal of 90% you're going to get within, the specs. Who helped you set that goal? Because that must have been someone in the plant that knew what the heck they were talking about.
Yeah. So when I took the project on, before I kind of like came up with my goals, I kind of gave it a couple of weeks whilst I was like meeting with people and talking to see what I was going to be capable of doing. And then after I was sure that at least I just said I had to be kind of ambitious to put a goal out there. Initially, Frank, I started with a 95%. And then I started with, so the target was, I was ambitious, I started with a 95%.
Wow.
And then I kind of dropped it down to 90 because I figured, but I hit 80-something%, which was close to 90. So that's how the goal kind of started. I started high, dropped it down a little bit to 90.
Nice.
I like it.
Is there any other questions?
So do you have an expectation on how the improved volatile content from our suppliers is going to affect the end users' experience with our charcoal?
Yeah, so with volatiles, which I have another colleague, she did moisture side of things. So volatiles, like I said, it's a very big thing with the plants because they produce their own char in-house, and then we get this from the supplier as well. So the big challenge for them in terms of the process itself is when they mix the supplier char with their char, if the volatile is not within that specification limit, it makes their process a little bit difficult, and we have the situation where your briquettes it's not holding up and you have to use more starch and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of like the bottom line, it kind of hurts us a lot. And you're having to dry and all that kind of stuff, so you're spending a lot of money trying to get the process. because usually once your process is ongoing and you're going on with the process and you realize that, hey, the volatiles are not really stable, then you have to try and bring it down. So it's better you start with a volatile that's within what you're looking for before you get into the process and realize that you have to like spend more money like drying, which is obviously really the bottom line.
Just a quick comment on your experience with Tableau.
Sure.
Andrew, your chance to sell Tableau to the audience. What do you think about it? Or not sell it?
Well, it is absolutely great. So the one thing that I'll say with that, so just last week, with that work I was doing, I had an opportunity to, one of my managers gave me the chance to work on a project with Eddie Holland. So she had something she was doing, and it was with Excel. And then she wanted me to look at it. The idea was if I could use Excel to do that. And then when I looked at it, I was like, nah, this is Tableau stuff. So Tableau is absolutely wonderful. It's a wonderful software that I would definitely recommend here.
How did you make sure that all of these things that you did actually became part of the way of working on the plant? That everyone understand it and use it, like I said, every day?
Well, that the plants would understand and use it. So with regards to like box folder, so before I leave, since I was outgoing, I had to get someone to own it, and his name is Chris Hunter. He's a very, very wonderful guy. So with the quality analyst, I set up that box folder, so once we had that conference, everyone got to meet everyone, and like we also have like weekly calls that we do for like the quality analytics folks in the plant. And also like so that I knew I was going, I did ask for someone to volunteer, and he did volunteer to kind of own that. And then so I definitely have faith that he would take over. And like Callum Mueller, who is my sponsor on this as well, she also kind of like is updated on that and will make sure that it gets sustained.
For the first project on the charcoal, it was obviously a dramatic improvement if you look at the data. Were the operators in the plant, have they noticed,
Yeah.
they noticed that they commented and kind of commented?
Absolutely, with Bell. So with Bell, like, and I don't know why, so even with my second, I keep mentioning Bell. Bell happens to be like 20 minutes from my school. And so for some reason, when the Bell folks came here and I was working to kind of like get in with Bell, and obviously every month I'll kind of get with them and kind of like get Dave Robinson. He was great as well to send me the data so I can see where we stand. Are we really within our specification limit? Is there improvement? So, and all the data he would send me, yeah, we're looking good with that. I think the main challenge now that we're moving to, which is the next phase, is moisture, is what we're looking to kind of like help them out with. But with volatiles, absolutely, yeah, it's been definitely great.
Just one last question. You said you were going to take it from Bell and move it across to the other two. Now, is the same supplier for all the plants?
That's correct. It's the same supplier. So we have just one supplier. So it was definitely great that we're able to do this so they could see the improvement. And this was more on getting them to realize that they were not testing right. So if their analysts are giving them the volatile numbers that they say they're testing like 28 or something like that, they can see if it's not the number we want, they can improve their process, the actual process, and get the volatiles down before they ship the product to our plants.